And speaking of uncharted times, let's take a close look at the worst case scenario, because this is what you do in times like these. After all, the world order is changing. There is a clear rift in the Western alliance. A lot of questions remain unanswered. So today, let's try to answer some of them. Questions like, what sort of defense apparatus does Europe have at the moment? Where does the European military stand? How does it compare to the United States of America, and can Europe protect itself without American support? Our next report tells you.
The split between the US and its European allies is widening. Now, Europe faces an important stress test amid a sea of questions. What if the US opts out of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? What if the Trump administration pulls out US troops? Where does Europe stand when it is alone? And how does it compare to the US militarily? Let's start with the basics. In terms of population, Europe's 742 million citizens significantly outnumber America's 340 million. But Europe's combined economy is similar to that of the US, while its defense spending is merely a fraction of America's. The US is the world's largest military spender, with an expenditure of about $968 billion last year. Meanwhile, European NATO members collectively spent $457 billion on defense. So, unsurprisingly, Europe wants to pick up the tab.
We are in an era of rearmament. And Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
This is Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. She has set out a vague proposal to ramp up military spending by as much as 800 billion euros, or some $843 billion. It sounds grand, but this amount will be spread over 4 years. And it's only possible if every European Union member pitches in. So at this point, this treasure chest is mostly a fantasy. And Europe has other urgent problems. First, that of troops. Since the end of the Second World War, US forces have been stationed in and deployed to Europe. Today, it stands at nearly 84,000. But in total, America has a whopping 1.3 million active personnel. This is roughly equivalent to all European countries combined, which stand at 1.47 million. So if the US decides to pull out its troops from Europe, Europe would need at least 300,000 more troops for self-defense to compensate for the absence and generate credible deterrence. But simply raising the troops is not enough. This brings us to the second problem. Europe heavily relies on Washington for its defense needs. This over-dependence for decades has left Europe weak. To deter a hypothetical attack from Russia, apart from additional troops, Europe would need 1,400 tanks, 2,000 infantry fighting vehicles, and 700 artillery pieces. But this is more than the current combat power of French, German, Italian, and British forces combined. This is according to a study by the Bruegel think tank and the Kiel Institute. While this is a hypothetical scenario, here is the reality check. The US has 11 active aircraft carriers, while Europe has 7. The US has more than 4,000 aircraft and 2,000 helicopters, while European armies have about 1,000 aircraft and 500 helicopters. If you dig deeper, the cracks widen. Look at the advanced multi-role fighter jets. Roughly around 600 Eurofighter Typhoons, 300 Swedish JAS-39 Gripens and 260 French Rafale jets have been built over the last 25 years or so. These are all 4.5 plus generation jets. Meanwhile, the US has produced around 1,100 of the world's most advanced 5th generation F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters and 195 of the same generation F-22 Raptors over the past decade. There is no European substitute for the F-35 yet. However, the jets remain a crucial component of their defense. Apart from the hardware, Europe cannot match up to America's high-tech prowess, including spy planes, radar jammers, and military specialists. So no matter how you look at it, Europe has ample reason to adopt a more resolute stance and bolster its military. Because throughout the international security landscape, there is an acute awareness that the European nervousness is not without reason.
Merci beaucoup. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Namaste, Mr. President.
Bharat Kelogon, Komeri Namaste.
How many people generally follow you in interviews?
Typically in a month, we have viewers up to 150 million. That's more than twice the population of France. And in the last 2 years, we had 3 billion viewers. So I say, Laurent, this is your chance to be famous. You're on Firstpost. One word to describe your equation with Prime Minister Modi.
Amitié.
As India and France work together, are you creating a new era of non-alignment in the technology space?
India is a training superpower. 1 million engineers a year, more than all of Europe and the US combined. So we have that partnership. We have a partnership on the environment and the economy. We also have civilian nuclear programs, and that is something we've developed far beyond the France-India relationship. So we want to work together on AI.
And then comes China with its DeepSeek, creating models at a fraction of the cost. Did that innovation take you by surprise? Did that breakthrough make you sit up and think, what did the Chinese do and how?
But what did DeepSeek do? They took everything that was already available from the last AI model, and then they recalibrated it.
So are you going to ban Chinese AI in France?
So we don't have this American approach of banning tech because of where it comes from.